Welcome to the Restoration Domination Podcast, where you learn actionable advice that moves the needle and helps service-based businesses dominate. Here's your host, Rico Garcia Jr.
What is going on, Restoration Dominators? Rico Garcia here, and this is an exciting episode because today we're going to be doing a solo podcast, and the reason for that is I want to share with you some of my own personal thoughts from having so many conversations with so many high-octave entrepreneurs that are peak performers that seem to be on top of the world. And we spend a lot of time, not only prior to the podcasts, but we also, once the initial interview that's kind of made public that you guys are accustomed to listening to and or watching, we spend a lot more time after the podcast is recorded. And, we start talking about some of the higher level aspects of business ownership and of just the entrepreneurial journey. And there are some common denominators when it comes down to these high achievers, these people that are really rocking and rolling within their industry. And this is not exclusive only to the restoration arena, whether that's water mitigation, mold, biohazard, fire smoke, content, storm chasing. It doesn't matter if you're a roofer. It doesn't matter if you're a public adjuster. This has been proven based on all of the conversations that I've had to be, again, one of these universal truths, one of these universal principles. So the theme of today's podcast is revolving around winning. And striving to win is one of the things that I personally believe is one of the most important traits that any entrepreneur can have. And winning for 100 people is going to be 100 different visions of what winning looks like. And what I want to do today is I want to go ahead and spend some time with you guys and give you my personal thoughts on everything that I've gathered, not only from my own life experience, from the things that I've put into practice, that I've vetted, but also some of the ideas and concepts that seem to be a common denominator across all of these wonderful entrepreneurs from all sorts of different industries and how they've applied this kind of stuff to their lives and how it's impacted not only them personally, but from a business perspective as well. So part of this inspiration came from a book that I read quite often, which is Napoleon Hill's classic, Think and Grow Rich, which, by the way, if you haven't gotten a copy of Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, I would strongly recommend for you to go ahead and pick up a copy and dig into it. This is a book that at a bare bones minimum, once a year, I'll go back and reread the book. In some instances, sometimes I'll do it once a quarter. And the interesting thing is that depending upon when you pick up this book and where you are in your life today, once you start resetting the sail, and you come back to the book, you're going to get something else out of what you've just read. So it's just one of those classic pieces that you can go back to over and over and over again. And part of what Think and Grow Rich is all about is kind of like what it says in the title, right? It's about thinking. It's about a mindset. It's about how you perceive yourself first and foremost, how you perceive events that are happening in your life, events that are happening in the economy, events that are happening in your business, and then how you create a plan in order to achieve whatever your goals are. So today's podcast is going to be all about striving to win and the mindset that is necessary in order for you to accomplish that. And when we're talking about winning, the first thing that we have to do is kind of start right from the top, right? Like, what exactly does it mean to win? What is winning? And winning, the easiest way that I can go ahead and describe it is that winning is a mindset. It's not something that you do on occasion. It's something that you're striving for day in and day out. Now, unfortunately, a lot of us entrepreneurs, what we do is when we think about winning, we think about just the scorecard. We think about just what we're doing in top line revenue or in profits or how many trucks we have on the road or whatever the case may be, right? But the reality is that winning is a lot bigger than just one segment of your life. And business just happens to be one segment of your life. What a lot of people forget is that how you do one thing on one area of your life typically has an effect on all other areas of your life as well. And unfortunately, as entrepreneurs, because again, we are busy, there's only 24 hours in a day, there's a lot of things that come up and we're like, man, you know what? I just don't have the time to spend with my family, or I don't have the time to spend on myself and my, mental well-being and my emotional well-being and my physical health, because you're pouring all of these long hours into the business, because that's how most entrepreneurs gauge whether or not they're winning in life, right? Because it's this tangible thing that you could look at a spreadsheet and be like, hey, did we do better this month than we did last month? Are we better off this year at this month than we were last year at this exact time, right? We can measure this, we can quantify it. The problem with that is that we rarely ever, unless we make a clear and deliberate plan, to take a step back so that we can go ahead and re-examine all areas of our lives, right? So that's really what winning is. Winning is a mindset that you need to go ahead and develop for yourself in all aspects of your life. And part of doing that is to get really clear on all areas of your life. So how do you do that? First things first, you grab a pen and a sheet of paper and you start jotting down your ideas, right? And you start having this one-off conversation with yourself about where it is that you are currently and how that situation is making you feel as an individual. Forget as a business owner, forget about, the role of a father, forget about all of that, right? Just as an individual right here, right now, based on where you are, how is it that's making you feel? And then once you have some clarity as to where you are, the resources that you have, the opportunities perhaps that you've, looking back, hindsight 2020, you've kind of let slip between your fingers, and you've just done this really in-depth dive into you, your life, your psychology, what makes you tick, why is it that you are a workaholic, or why is it that you are procrastinating, or why is it that you're gun shy about all of these things? Well, now you have the foundation of honesty that you've provided to yourself, right? Because again, sometimes we're not very honest with each other, right? We're not very honest with ourselves. We will, create these excuses for ourselves and that are keeping us from achieving our goals and achieving the things that we want to do. So having that foundation of honesty that you've established with yourself and writing everything down, all aspects of your life, right? We're talking about your business. We're talking about your relationships. We're talking about your family. We're talking about the relationships with your employees and your team members, the ties that you have to your local community, the accountability that you have set for yourself, right? How much time are you spending with yourself for you? And have all of these areas of your life like really mapped out and at least you've touched on. It doesn't mean that you need to have this entire thing figured out. Of course, rarely will that ever be the case, but if you can have all of the preliminary stuff at least on paper, now you can go ahead and start setting some goals and start striving towards a particular destination, right? Something that you want to achieve. So there's several ways that you can go ahead and do this, right? One of them is, developing morning routines or evening routines or a daily routine, just at some point throughout the day that that you as an entrepreneur, you can go ahead and dedicate time and energy towards your personal growth, your personal development, some of the hobbies that you enjoy, that maybe you feel like you've never really had the time to do. All of these things are extremely important, especially if in business, if part of what you're doing involves some kind of creativity, if it involves some kind of mental bandwidth for you to tackle a particular issue or a problem, if you wake up in the morning, typically the first couple of hours in the day is when you are all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, right? This is when your creativity is substantially higher. This is when your willingness to stick to a plan is at its highest, right? Because the power of will just happens to wither away with each passing hour of the day. Each decision you make gets you closer to weaker and weaker decision making throughout the course of the day. That's just the way that it is, right? We have a finite amount of focus. We have a finite amount of stern decision making capabilities that's allotted to us each and every single day, which is, again, if you think about if you guys have ever been on a diet, right? Typically, you can wake up in the morning and go all day without having a cheat meal. Right around, evening time starts rolling in. After you've already made all of these stern decisions, all of a sudden, this is when you decide to, break your diet and, eat a piece of cake or whatever it is that you're going to do, right? And part of that is it's not because you're broken. It's just because that's the way that the human mind is built. It's built with a finite amount of decisions that can be made. And this is exactly the best time for you to get some of your more creative work done. This is some of the best time to do some of the deeper work that needs to get done, not only on yourself personally, but also in business. So that being said, what are some of the areas of your life that you should be looking at, right? First and foremost, you got to take care of you. The most important person in the universe, for all intents and purposes, is you as an individual. Because without you, you can, particularly your body, your physical well-being, you can't hug your kids, you can't go to work, you can't do anything that's of any real value. Yet for most entrepreneurs, we spend less and less time on taking care of us as an individual, right? Us as a human being, because we're just trying to build a business. And sometimes you just got to take a step back, right? Sometimes doing less is in fact doing more. And we're going to get into some of the ideas here behind actual productivity and how to start setting these goals up properly, right? So we're just kind of like laying the foundation here so that we get an idea of what needs to be done moving forward. But health is one of those really big things that we need to be looking at as entrepreneurs if we are striving to win in our business, in our personal life. Because without that, without your mental clarity, without your body showing up with the energy that it needs in order for you to tackle the day and do this in a way that is, eager and motivated to take care of the things that need to be taken care of that day, the reality is that if you're halfway tired, if you're just not feeling well, it becomes very, very difficult for you to be a top performer. And that's one of the main areas that you really need to focus on, right? But what are some of the other areas of your life, right? If you really want to win, that you need to be taking inventory of. Number one, your relationships, right? Your family, your friends, your colleagues, your other pros in the industry, things of that nature. Write each one of these, buckets down and, rate it on, a scale from 1 to 5, 1 to 10, or just write out some segments within each bucket to help you identify how you feel you're performing in that particular sector. Are you winning when it comes down to your connections? Are you winning when it comes down to your family? Are you winning when it comes time to the amount of time that you're giving to yourself and dedicating to you as an individual, to your, to your hobbies, to your personal development, things of that nature? Right? And you do this through each and every single segment of your life that you can think of. And if in the beginning you can only get 2 or 3, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. At least you're getting the ball rolling. What you'll soon realize is that now you're going to have more and more that you're going to be adding to other segments of your life that you are, just by putting pen to paper, this is going to allow you to kind of take a bird's eye view of what your day-to-day or your week-to-week or your month-to-month looks like. And then you're going to be able to rate that and say, hey, look, this is important. It's not important. This is an area of my life that I want to dedicate more time to, or this is not an area of my life and it's not an area in business that I want to dedicate time to. And this list can genuinely become endless, especially as an entrepreneur. Think about how many hats you wear on a day-to-day, right? Whether you're, doing the marketing, if you're doing sales, if you're doing project management, if you're doing projects yourself, if you're, the HR department and you're the accounting department, that's a lot of hats that you have to wear each and every single day. Well, again, all of these are different sections of your life, if you will, that are either adding to who you are as an individual or they're depleting you. And in a lot of cases, it's actually bottlenecking you and your own personal growth because it's sucking your time and you're bottlenecking the company. So this is a practice that very few day-to-day entrepreneurs do. However, without exception, each and every single high octave entrepreneur that we've had the ability to interview, sit down with, really get into the weeds about what has made their business different, these are the exact practices that they're doing. And they're doing this with great care, right? So take an inventory of yourself and how you feel, and all of the resources that you have available to you is also a major component. Now that you know all of these different areas of your life, now you start taking inventory and say, hey, what is it that I have that is available to me that I can go ahead and deploy in each and every single one of these segments of my life, right? Is it the financial resources? Is it the people in my network that I can go ahead and tap into? Whatever that may look like for you, right? If you're in restoration, this could be from a business standpoint. It could be something as simple as what is your unique selling proposition to the general marketplace? What advantage do you have in marketing that perhaps other people don't? Physical inventory of how many projects it is that you have the ability to tackle, and are you at what rate of capacity are you actually at, and how can you determine of the total revenue that you're bringing in from all of the projects, which ones are the most profitable, which ones are the ones that are adding the most amount of joy to your life, and which ones are the ones that are least profitable and sucking the joy out of your life, right? So this list, as you can see, could really get expansive really quick, but this is an important exercise because once you do that, that's when you can go ahead and start setting the sail, as Jim Rohn says, to whatever it is that your goal or your destiny is, because now you understand where you're starting from. And something that I think is really interesting is Jim Rohn says that you should start, right? You should not start the day before it's finished. And that applies to the week, the month, the year, the decade. So really what he's saying is that you should take the time to plan out every single aspect of what you believe this journey will look like. Imagine a car manufacturer, right? Imagine Ford or Chevy or Mercedes. It doesn't matter, right? Typically what they do is they put pen to paper, they do an initial draft on the vehicle, and then they get the engineers and they start figuring out, hey, where should this screw go? How should we build this? How should we build that? And they have it all mapped out on paper before anything gets manufactured. And guess what? 9 times out of 10, once everything is built to the specifications that were outlined originally, once you put that key in that ignition, that car just fires up, right? And the reason is because they finished it from beginning to end. They finished it. They saw the whole vision before they started building it. And the same thing happens with your health. The same thing happens with your business. The same thing happens with your marketing plan. The same thing happens with every single aspect of your business. But ask yourself and be really honest. When was the last time that you took enough time for yourself to give that amount of thinking room to where you said, hey, this is necessary for me to go ahead and take a step back from my quote unquote busy work in order for me to go and plan everything that I need to plan so that I can go ahead and achieve my goals, right? And once if this is a question that you ask around on some of your colleagues or, friends or, entrepreneur buddies, what have you, what you'll realize is that a lot of them don't give themselves that permission. They don't have a written plan. If you say, hey, show me, we'll say, well, I have mental notes. Well, mental notes is not the same thing as physically writing it down and having a mapped out view of what your goals are. So the other thing that we have to look at is, what are your aspirations? What are your goals? What is it that actually what's your why, right? And this is something that a lot of people ask, is really hot on the internet right now. It's really hot in, topics of conversation. It's like, figure out your why. But then there's really not a whole lot of explanation of what your why is, right? Because this is going to change over time. Whatever is motivating you today may not necessarily motivate you 5 years from now. It may not motivate you 5 months from now because your circumstances have changed, right? And there's always going to be a next level. There's always going to be something above and beyond where you currently are right now. So taking a step back and figuring out what your why is, what it is currently today, and then if you were to step into your perfect life, what do you think your why would be then? And you jot that down. And then once you have that, now you can start mapping out the goals for each and every single one of these areas of your life. And does this mean that you have to do them all? No. Maybe you could start with the top, 3. Maybe you could do, family, business, and relationships, right? Or, family, business, health, however it is that you want to break it up. Point is that those are the top 3 that you're targeting, and you're going through this entire exercise, and then you're developing a concise goal to reach each and every single one of those buckets, right? To fill every single one of those buckets. So once you've done that, this is when you start really taking the time to put pen to paper and figure out, okay, in order for me to achieve this kind of result in business, what is it that I need to do? What is it that I do not know? Which is possibly one of the most important questions that you could ever ask yourself as a business owner. It's, what do I not know? What is it that I'm missing? Who else has done bigger, better, grander things than I with the exact same resources that I have, or in some cases, even less resources that I have? And how is it that I'm not looking at this properly? Right? That's a very humbling question because we want to feel like we know everything. And that's a perfect human nature, type of characteristic. But at the end of the day, why sit there and continue doing the exact same thing when just asking yourself that one simple question? What is it that I'm not aware of? What is it that I don't know about this situation that if I knew could take my business to a whole new level? Right? And now you start going ahead and writing this stuff down. Once you start writing it down, you want to go ahead and get very clear and very concise as to what areas of the business you feel you are struggling the most with, and which areas you feel of your business are just rocking and rolling. Once you have all of that mapped out, one of the next things that you want to do is you want to go ahead and start looking for consistencies across your business when it comes down to the 80-20 rule, right? And typically, if you look into any business, you're going to realize that there is an 80-20 rule, right? Where, 20% of your clientele is producing about 80% of the revenue, let's say, or something along those lines. And usually this is pretty true across any industry, but you start identifying these things in your business. Why do you want to even identify these things? Well, number one, when it comes down to marketing, you're going to know where you should market and where you should spend your time at. But number two, this will also give you a great opportunity for you to go ahead and start pulling back on things that maybe you're spending 80% of your time, but it's only generating 20% of the results for your business or what have you. Maybe that's not the best allocation of time, money, and resources, right? So taking this inventory is really going to allow you to get very clear on how this vision for your business should look. Once you have all of these broad strokes, let's call them, written down on paper, this is now, where you should have your goals mapped out. And what I want to talk about next is what exactly is a goal and what's the purpose of a goal, which a lot of people just get this really wrong. They just totally misunderstand what a goal is and how you should try to achieve it. And what I want to try to do is kind of give you my perspective on what a goal is, what it's actually meant to do, and what to achieve, and what to do after you've accomplished the goal. Because again, the goal should be something that is achievable and can come to fruition if you have a plan in place. But before we jump into that, I just want to take a quick break and thank our sponsors. Hey, Dominators, real quick, let me ask you a question. How would you like to increase productivity? How would you like faster claims resolution? And more importantly, how would you like to reduce litigation? Well, this is exactly what Impartial allows you to do. Impartial creates timely, accurate estimates for faster and fair claim settlement. Building upon Matterport's technology, the Impartial Scope tool extracts the relevant data embedded with pre-mitigation and post-mitigation scans and subsequently renders an exactimate or assemblability estimate that can be approved by a carrier without any hesitation. The magic here is that the software helps contractors generate mitigation and repair estimates for more rapid approval from insurance carriers while removing the burdensome administrative process. Each Impartial estimate is produced with objective accuracy using immersive 3D imagery and precise physical and geospatial measurements. Impartial, in my opinion, is one of those tools that simply can go ahead and change your business. And with so many features such as Impartial tags, timestamp matter tags, the ability to upload JPEG, PNG, ESX, and so much more. Impartial is that software that could genuinely change your business. Make sure that you check them out in the video description below or in the show notes and see for yourself. Hey, Dominators, real quick, let me ask you a question. Have policyholders struggled to come up with your money because it's held with the mortgage company? Or does the percentage of uncollected debt that you collected in 2021 exceed over 2.5%? Or even better, let me ask you this. Do you dread negotiating with your policyholder when it comes time to collect your final payment and deductible? So look, if you answered yes to any of these questions, then you need to check out Surety. You see, Surety is a third-party fund control company. And what they do is they ensure that you get paid faster and, more importantly, completely for the hard work that your crews are doing. Surety relieves not only the policyholder, but you of tremendous administrative burden while ensuring that the claims process, and more importantly, the proceeds flow via ACH to the rightful owner, you, the restorer. And here's the best part. For less than the average credit card fee, Surety delivers on numerous fronts. So here's what I want you to do. If you want to learn more about how Surety can help you, I want you to head on over to www.surety.com/dominate and request a free demo today. Now listen, Restoration Domination listeners just like you are going to receive a really cool offer, and here it is. You're going to receive an exclusive offer which includes free processing for the first insurance claims check and 3 months of free access within their network. Again, that's Surety, SURETI.com/dominate dominate. Photo documentation is possibly one of the most important aspects of what it is that we do in the restoration business. Not only so that the client knows exactly what's going on, but also so that you can prove your work to insurance companies. One of the best ways that I found to go ahead and document our projects is by using Company Cam. Company Cam is an amazing app. It has so many features, everything from time-stamped and GPS located photos, individual project files, unlimited photo storage, in-app communication with your crew, a live stream of all of your projects as the photos are coming in, as if it was an Instagram feed. So from a managerial standpoint, Company Cam can help you there as well. But more importantly, it gives you the ability to protect your organization while documenting and keeping everything nice and neat. So we've got a really special offer for you. If you go to companycam.com/dominate, not only will you get your 14-day free trial, but you're also going to get the first 2 months 50% off. So again, head on over to companycam.com/dominate, get the app, and I'm sure you're going to love it. All right, so I'm back, and now we're going to start talking a little bit more about the actual goals, what goals really are at their core, and what they're really intended for, right? A lot of people get disappointed when they have been working so hard towards a goal and they finally reach it. And then all of a sudden that's it. They're like, well, what now? Now I achieved this goal. What am I supposed to do now? Understanding the nature of a goal is for you to achieve it, and that immediately right after that, there's going to be a new level. There's going to be a new playing field. There's going to be something new for you to tackle. This is extremely important. And this is where keeping this almost living document is really what helps a lot of entrepreneurs, because now you have a starting point. Once you started writing this down, this is where you were. These are the things that you put in place, right, in order for you to go ahead and achieve that goal. What are some of the things that you should have in place? Well, some of the things that you should have in place are, again, whatever your routines are that you feel that you can go ahead and allocate X amount of time towards your personal development, your health, your hobbies, things for you, right? You have to take care of you. And then, of course, all of the other buckets of how you're going to, as part of your bigger goal, you need to hire, let's say, a couple of project managers. What does that look like for your business, right? What things do you need to start doing now? Maybe that's, dedicating an hour a day for X amount of time to develop SOPs, standard operating procedures that you've been meaning to get to. And because you haven't gotten to that, now this has bottlenecked your business and it's really kind of hindering your ability to hire new people. Well, now that was your starting point. Well, then once you've achieved these things, well, immediately after that, there's going to be yet another goal for you to go ahead and start to tackle. The whole idea of a goal is just to give you direction as to where you're supposed to go. So that way, when you arrive, you know whether or not you've arrived because you already had this set standard for what this goal looked like, whether that's revenue, whether that's body fat percentage, like it doesn't really matter, right? Whatever that thing is, well, great. Now you've arrived at that goal and off to the next one, right? Like that's really what it's all about. Then that's just when you go back to the drawing board and start really giving a lot more thought about how you feel now that you are here, right? At this new level. Because a lot of business owners, what ends up happening is they say, for example, you want to make your first, I don't know, let's call it $5 million in revenue. And you're like, man, when I hit my first $5 million in revenue, I'm really going to be happy. I'm really going to be thrilled. I'm going to, feel like this. I'm going to walk like this. I'm going to talk like this. And you start to create this like thing in your head. But then you realize that once you hit that goal, right, which is a lofty goal, perhaps when you first started, once you hit that goal, you're like, wow, is this all that there is? So the perspective has changed over time. And typically why that is, it's not because you reached the goal. It's usually not it. Usually that perspective changes because you as an individual had to grow in order to achieve that goal. That means you needed to put new practices and habits in place in order for you to achieve that goal. In essence, you're a totally different individual now than you were before you achieved the goal, because, you can't go backwards in life and still miraculously have, the results that you want. So prime example is for you to go ahead and set a goal to, be at X amount of weight. You want to lose X amount of pounds and you want to, be shredded, let's say, but then you're going out and you're eating, Mickey D's all day. Well, that's the actions are going backwards. You can't expect the results to just magically show up, right? So the same thing is going to happen in any business. Now once you finally hit that goal weight, let's say, and you're X amount of body fat, well, you became a different person because you had to identify as a person who's not eating Mickey D's all day and you're taking certain actions, right? So, you cut back the carbs, you cut back, on, the junk foods and the processed foods. And then now that's your new identity. So of course, once you hit that goal, right, where you originally thought that you were going to be happy, what you're going to realize is that now there's a whole other level for you to strive towards, right? There's this whole other person waiting, this whole other version of you that's waiting for you to step into, right? So that's basically what happens once you start, writing down your goals and then achieving those goals is once you finally hit it, well, there's going to be this whole new area of your life that just totally opens up. So what are some of the things that you want to be looking at, right? And why do so many people fail at achieving their goals? And part of this is about staying on track with the things that you have put in place that have the ability to go ahead and move the needle for you. And based on the conversations that I've had with so many of these entrepreneurs that have just shared their innermost thoughts with regards to this goal setting process, right? This striving to win formula, is the hardest part is, number one, the thinking involved in even getting started. The amount of brain power that it takes for you to go ahead and truly do a deep dive into you, your life, what makes you tick, what areas of your life you want to improve, whether that be personal or business. And then once you've achieved that, sticking to the plan, right? In other words, really making a conscious effort to say, this is where I want to go. And in order for me to get there, I have to stick to my guns on what I said I was going to do. So staying true to you is the hardest part in this entire element, right? Because anybody can say that they could wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to, crush their, an hour of deep and focused work on their SOPs, let's say. And it's easy to say, and you can write that down. But the question is when that alarm goes off tomorrow at 4:30 a.m., are you really going to be in the mindset? Right? Are you going to be honest with yourself and say, hey, look, I'm not going to turn off that alarm. I'm going to go ahead and do what I said I was going to do, right? And deposit this good faith into your personal, emotional bank account, if you will, and actually stick to your guns? Or are you just going to hit the snooze button and you're like, tomorrow's another day. And then, of course, the next day you rinse and repeat. You just fail at it and fail at it again. And then eventually you have these goals that are written down. And you're like, yeah, I have goals that are written down, but they're not getting me anywhere. Well, it's because you're not executing on those goals, right? So you have to be realistic with the expectations that you set for yourself, and also if you're going to actually stick with it. So staying on track is one of the hardest parts of actually achieving your goals. But the way that you do that, at least to help, is to along the way have these mini goals, right? These little milestones that you set for yourself. And this could be something as small as, a small celebration for yourself. This could be, a celebration in the company. This could be something as simple as a luncheon or something along those lines, right? But just having built in reward systems for yourself or your company or whatever it is that you're, whatever context it is that you're working in, that's one of the things that has helped the majority of people stick with their longer term goal, right? Their bigger vision goal is they're not just chugging away and plugging away, trying to figure out, okay, well, when am I ever going to arrive? No, they have very specific points that they've already predetermined to say, hey, look, once I get here, I'm at 1/4 mark, like 1/4 of the way there. Boom, this deserves a celebration. And what this does is this just releases, the feel good cocktail in your brain that says, all right, all of the hard work that I've put in is getting me exactly to where I need to be, right? So it's kind of like refilling the tank in order for you to make it to now the halfway point. And once you hit the halfway point, same thing. You refill that tank through a celebration, through some kind of a reward system, something. And then that kind of fills up your emotional bank again, right? That the energy bank again, in order for you to make it from the halfway mark to the 3/4 mark, right? And so on. And that's part of the process in how to actually make your goals meaningful and put you in a position to where you could actually win at the game that you've set out for yourself. Is writing it all down, being extremely honest with yourself, looking at each and every single aspect of your life, figuring out which ones are the most important to you and your business, and then writing out a consistent plan, a very concise plan of what it is that you're going to do, who you're going to need to bring on board to help you with those goals, what that's going to look like, the sacrifices that you're going to have to make, and make this a forward contract with yourself with a built-in reward system. So that way it gives you the best possible opportunity to stick to your goals, to stick to your plan, and to make sure that you actually achieve them. And again, the reason why this is so important for me and why I wanted to cover this today is because there's these universal principles that I've noticed that each and every single one of the people that we've brought onto the Restoration Domination show, they all share this one thing in common, which is very, very good and tight systems for their business, as well as a very clear and detailed set of goals that are designed to help them win as individuals, right? And the reason why it's striving to win and it's not just winning, it's because you're always going to be in that pursuit of trying to get better, right? Trying to get bigger, trying to achieve more. So you're just that you're striving to always be winning at the next level of you. So my suggestion for everybody who's listening today is, if you haven't done so, if you think that it's a stupid practice, if you think that this is a new agey type of thing, if you feel that, hey, you know what, I don't have the time for any of this. This is just total BS. It doesn't really matter. I have my goals already mapped out in my head. I challenge you to do something. I challenge you to actually take a pen and sheet of paper, or your digital writing device, what have you, and start going through the exercise just for shits and giggles and see what kind of a difference that makes in your life, in your business, by just consulting with yourself and identifying areas of your life that maybe you haven't shared with anybody else, right? Think about even some of the best coaches or consultants, or hell, even therapists, right? Nobody knows your situation better than you. Nobody knows how you feel. Nobody knows how you perceive things. We're such complex individuals that there is no one size fits all. So mentorship is, of course, extremely important. Coaching is extremely important, right? All of these things are great. But at the end of the day, the only person that's going to go out and save you is you. And part of that process, in order to make sure that you are staying on track, is to consistently get back to your set of goals. And then one last parting thought is, how often should you review your goals? How often should you be going through your plan to win? And the honest truth to that is it depends. It depends on who you are as an individual. what a lot of the individuals that we've had conversations with, right? What I've done personally is if this is a goal that is important to you, that should be front and center multiple times a day for as long as it takes. You want to be able to recite the top keys within your goals. Just like most people can recite their company mission, just like most people can recite, the Pledge of Allegiance, right? You should be able to have this so embedded in your mind that it's not just something that you wrote down once and you forgot. There's tons of literatures, including the Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich, where they recommend for you to read them multiple times a day. Once in the morning, after your midday meal, once before going to bed. And the reason for this is, again, it's about taking what you wrote, your own words, and really making sure that you drive this into the subconscious mind and that you give yourself the absolute best opportunity to win. So that's my spiel today on thinking, on setting goals, on having that winning mindset that is necessary in the competitive landscape of business, and more importantly, just at this game of life. And the one area that I think we all can agree that we can always improve is something about ourselves, right? There's just that striving desire to be a little bit better than we were yesterday. And I would go ahead and encourage you to go ahead and develop not just one big overarching goal, but to develop several goals, right? To develop several game plans on how you're going to achieve different things in different sectors of your life. And when it comes down to your business, subdivide these into maybe departments, into roles, into, other areas that maybe you are lacking on, whether that is your sales or your marketing department or your project managers, whatever the case may be. Go ahead and go through this exact same process and sit back and think what the perfect scenario would look like and what pieces of the puzzle would you need in order to accomplish that. And this now will become part of that process for you that you can look back at 6 months from now, take an inventory and be really brutally honest with yourself and be like, did I stick to this plan? And if you're not where you want to be, and 9 times out of 10, it's because you didn't stick to the plan, right? Or it gives you an opportunity to go back and redesign what it's actually going to take for you to get to where you want to be. And ultimately, it's about just you having the best, happiest life that you could possibly have as an entrepreneur. And this is one of those practices where 5 years from now, you're going to arrive, right? Like 5 years from now, you're going to get there, God willing. Question is are you going to just be wherever you are because that's where you ended up? Or are you going to land somewhere 5 years from now based on the design, on a plan that you actually put in place? And with that, ladies and gentlemen, always remember the name of the game: hustle, hack, dominate. And I'll see you guys on the next episode.
You've been listening to Restoration Domination, your #1 resource for tips, tricks, and hacks to help your business grow. Subscribe to our channel and follow us for more Restoration Domination. And follow our host at Rico Garcia Jr. on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Till next time, this is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, dominate.